While the average American family carries over $90,000 in debt, Amish households operate entirely debt-free across generations. Their financial freedom doesn't come from higher incomes or lucky breaks. It comes from 10 spending rules that contradict everything modern consumer culture teaches about money and happiness. Never buy what you cannot pay for. The foundation of Amish financial freedom starts with one absolute rule that eliminates debt before it can begin. If you cannot pay cash in full today, you simply do not make the purchase, regardless of how badly you want or think you need the item. This principle operates without exceptions. No credit cards exist in Amish wallets. No payment plans get negotiated with merchants. No buy now, pay later schemes tempt families into spending money they haven't earned yet. The transaction happens entirely with physical cash changing hands, or the transaction doesn't happen at all. The biblical foundation comes from Romans 13-8, which instructs believers to owe no man anything. The Amish interpret this literally, viewing debt not just as financial burden, but as spiritual bondage that compromises their independence and contradicts God's design for human relationships. This rule transforms major purchases into multi-year planning exercises. A family wanting new furniture saves for months or years until the full amount sits ready in cash. Young couples planning to establish households spend a decade accumulating everything they'll need before marriage even occurs. Distinguish needs. The Amish operate with a definition of needs so narrow it would shock most modern families, drowning in purchases they convinced themselves were essential. Their framework recognizes exactly 4 categories of true needs: food, shelter, clothing, and community connection. Everything beyond these falls into the wants category, regardless of how contemporary culture has reclassified luxuries as necessities. This distinction gets taught to children from age 5, creating lifelong spending patterns that prevent the lifestyle inflation plaguing most households as income increases. An Amish child learns that wanting something and needing something represent fundamentally different states requiring completely different responses. Food means basic nutrition, not restaurant meals or processed convenience foods. Shelter means protection from elements, not showcasing status through size or luxury features. Clothing means covering the body modestly and practically, not following fashion trends or owning extensive wardrobes. Community means participating in gatherings and supporting neighbors, not purchasing entertainment or technology. Wants must wait until needs are completely satisfied with margin remaining. Most Amish families discover that once needs receive proper attention and emergency funds exist, surprisingly few wants actually matter enough to justify spending accumulated savings. Modern culture has successfully convinced people that internet access, smartphones, multiple vehicles, and constant upgrades represent needs rather than wants. The Amish reject this completely. By quality, walk into an Amish home and you'll find furniture their great-grandparents used daily. Sit at their kitchen table built in 1890. Store clothes in dressers constructed before automobiles existed. The Amish approach to purchasing prioritizes quality so exceptional that items serve multiple generations rather than requiring replacement every few years. This strategy appears expensive initially but creates dramatic savings over time. A handcrafted solid wood table might cost $2,000 compared to a particle board alternative for $300. But that cheap table needs replacement every 5 to 7 years, meaning you'll purchase it 20 times across 140 years, while the quality table serves your great-great-grandchildren without any replacement cost whatsoever. The same principle applies to tools, farm equipment, cookware, and every other purchase category. Quality items can be repaired when they break rather than discarded and replaced. The initial investment in superior craftsmanship pays dividends for decades through avoided replacement costs and repair expenses that quality construction minimizes. The Amish saying captures this perfectly. The poor man pays twice. Buying cheap means buying repeatedly, which ultimately costs far more than investing in quality from the beginning. They've watched this pattern play out across generations, creating deeply ingrained preference for items built to last rather than designed for planned obsolescence. Modern consumer culture pushes the opposite approach, encouraging frequent purchases of cheaply made items that break quickly, generating continuous spending that benefits manufacturers while impoverishing consumers who think they're saving money through low initial prices. Make instead of buy. The Amish relationship with money fundamentally differs from modern approaches because they possess skills that transform potential purchases into home production projects. This capability allows them to meet needs without spending, creating savings that compound dramatically across lifetimes. Food production represents the most obvious example. Gardens planted each spring provide vegetables that feed families throughout the year when properly preserved through canning, freezing, and root cellar storage. Chickens supply eggs and occasional meat. Cows provide milk that becomes butter, cheese, and cream. The grocery spending that consumes 10–15% of typical American household budgets drops to perhaps 3–4% for Amish families producing most food themselves. Clothing construction saves thousands annually. Women sew dresses, shirts, pants, and undergarments from fabric purchased in bulk. The cost of materials for a complete outfit runs perhaps $15, 20 compared to $100, 200 for equivalent store-bought clothing. A family of 8 children means this skill saves $5,000, $8,000 yearly on clothing alone. Furniture building, home repair, equipment maintenance, and countless other skills replace service purchases throughout life. The time investment is substantial, but the financial savings prove enormous. More importantly, these skills create independence from the cash economy that modern families depend upon completely for meeting every need. Share major purchases. Perhaps the most innovative Amish financial strategy involves collective ownership of expensive items that individual families cannot afford but multiple households can purchase together. This approach dramatically reduces the capital required for farming, construction, and other activities requiring specialized equipment. Farm machinery represents the clearest example. A corn picker might cost $15,000 but gets used perhaps 10 days yearly. Rather than each farm purchasing their own equipment, 5 families contribute $3,000 each, then schedule usage during harvest season. Everyone gets access to quality equipment at 1/5 the individual cost. The same principle extends to bulk purchasing. 10 families combine orders to buy flour, sugar, fabric, and other staples directly from wholesalers at prices individual households could never access. The savings range from 30–60% compared to retail prices, creating thousands in annual savings for each participating family. Wedding expenses demonstrate how community sharing transforms what would be crushing individual costs into manageable collective contributions. A wedding might cost $15,000 in total expenses, but when 300 families each contribute food, labor, or small cash amounts, no single household bears overwhelming burden. Medical costs follow similar patterns. The church maintains a fund that covers serious illnesses, accidents, and hospital stays. Monthly contributions run perhaps $200 per family compared to $800, $1,000. With the added benefit that all money stays within the community rather than enriching insurance companies. This collective approach to major expenses creates financial resilience that individual wealth accumulation cannot match. Planned purchases. Impulse buying cannot exist when purchases require years of planning and saving. The Amish approach to acquiring anything significant involves extended timelines that fundamentally change the relationship between desire and action. Young girls receive hope chests around age 12 and spend the next decade filling them with handmade items for their future households. This 10-year preparation period means marriage never creates sudden financial pressure requiring debt or parental bailouts. Every item needed for establishing an independent household gets accumulated gradually through patient, sustained effort. Farm equipment purchases follow similar multi-year timelines. A family recognizing they'll need a new plow in 5 years begins setting aside money monthly until the purchase date arrives with full payment ready. No loan necessary, no interest paid, just disciplined saving toward a known future need. Home construction might span 10 to 15 years as families save money, accumulate materials, and build gradually. They might start with a small structure, live in it while working, then expand as savings allow. The final result costs perhaps 40% of what a mortgaged home would cost when you eliminate decades of interest payments. This planning horizon requires delaying gratification in ways modern culture considers almost impossible. But the Amish prove that extending the timeline between wanting something and acquiring it creates financial stability that short-term thinking cannot achieve. Every major purchase gets discussed extensively within families and sometimes with church elders before proceeding, creating additional accountability that prevents poorly considered spending decisions. Maintain emergency funds. The Amish prioritize financial security over comfort or convenience, maintaining substantial cash reserves before considering any non-essential purchases. This emergency fund provides a buffer against unexpected expenses that force unprepared families into debt when crisis strikes. The standard target sits at 6 months of living expenses, though many families maintain even larger reserves. This means before purchasing better furniture, upgrading equipment, or making any discretionary spending, they ensure they could survive 6 months without any income whatsoever. Medical emergencies represent the primary concern. While community funds help with major expenses, families maintain personal reserves for moderate costs that don't justify community assistance. A broken bone, minor surgery, or extended illness shouldn't create financial crisis, so savings exist specifically for these situations. Crop failures occur regularly in agriculture, making reserves essential for families dependent on farming income. A year without adequate harvest means living entirely on savings until the next season produces income again. Without these reserves, families would face impossible choices between meeting basic needs and maintaining their farms. Farm equipment breakdowns, building repairs, and unexpected disasters all become manageable when reserves exist. The peace of mind from knowing you can handle financial shocks without borrowing money or begging assistance proves more valuable than any luxury purchase security might have funded instead. This priority system ensures financial decisions never compromise family security for temporary pleasure or convenience. Refuse all credit. The Amish view consumer credit with suspicion bordering on moral condemnation. Mortgages, car loans, credit cards, and all other borrowing mechanisms represent spiritual and practical dangers they refuse to accept, regardless of how normalized these become in mainstream culture. Mortgages conflict with their approach to home ownership. Rather than borrowing hundreds of thousands for instant house possession, they build gradually using cash as it becomes available. This might mean starting with a small structure and expanding over years, or living with extended family while saving. The absence of mortgage payments frees thousands of dollars monthly for other purposes or savings. Car loans never occur because the Amish don't purchase cars. They use horse-drawn buggies requiring no financing or hire non-Amish drivers when motorized transportation becomes necessary. This eliminates both purchase debt and the ongoing expenses of insurance, fuel, and maintenance that burden most households. Credit cards remain absent from Amish wallets entirely. The ability to spend money you haven't earned creates temptation they refuse to introduce into their financial lives. Cash-only purchases prevent overspending through the simple mechanism of running out of money, which credit artificially extends while creating debt that takes years to eliminate. Store credit and layaway plans also get rejected. If you cannot pay today, you wait until you can. Buy, used, and repurpose everything. The Amish relationship with used goods differs dramatically from status-conscious consumer culture that views secondhand purchases as indicating poverty or low social standing. They actively prefer used items when quality matches or exceeds new alternatives, viewing the savings as financial wisdom rather than embarrassment. Thrift stores and estate sales represent primary shopping destinations. Used clothing in good condition costs perhaps 10% of retail prices for new items. Since Amish clothing styles don't follow fashion trends, age of garments matters only for wear condition, not stylistic obsolescence. Construction materials get salvaged extensively. Barns being demolished become sources for lumber, windows, doors, and hardware that cost nothing beyond transportation effort. These reclaimed materials often